Pronation is so misunderstood. It's so misunderstood. So one of the things that happens is as you move, once again, I want constant movement. That big toe is not meant to be pushed off of. It's not. You can stand on it all day long, but to push off of it is a really poor lever to push off of. But guess what? You can roll over it all day. So if you're actually what we call active pronation, if you're actually pronating, then guess what? The other side can stay in action longer because I'm not at the edge yet. If you go to heel toe, or if you go what do we call to a neutral, your foot's going to put the brakes on for you because you're at the edge. So the biggest thing with the foot and athletic movement is understand how to stay away from the edge. That's the biggest thing. The foot is not weak. It's the fact that you're at the edge, and now you're reinforcing being when you start strengthening your toes and all that. You're going to reinforce being at the edge and gripping the ground and hold. And remember, claws are meant for gripping. And the stronger they are, the more I can grip the ground. I'm not saying things wrong with that because it has its time and place. There is a time and place where I want to grip the ground and hold strong. But if I'm trying to run, that's not the time. I'm not trying to grip ground. I'm not trying to grab ground. I'm trying to roll right over and keep on going.
That was Coach Adarian Barr speaking on the importance of active pronation, as well as not overgripping the toes and letting the force properly roll through the foot in the act of sprinting. You're listening to the Just Fly Performance Podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by SimpliFaster. SimpliFaster is an online athletic performance technology shop distributing items such as the Freelap timing system, GymAware, K-Box, 1080 Sprint, and the Speed Mat. I've gotten many of these items from SimpliFaster and can confidently say that they make today's best training technology available to everybody. The Freelap timing system has revolutionized both my practices and my athlete assessments, allowing me to look at the 10-meter fly capability of dozens of athletes in a matter of seconds. It is wireless, compact, portable, and incredibly versatile. The K-Box and 1080 Sprint are fantastic tools for any coach looking to build speed, agility, and implement training scenarios that go beyond the traditional weight room. The 1080 Sprint is being used by great coaches training some of the fastest sprinters in the world, and it truly represents high-performance speed training. I can personally attest that SimpliFaster's customer service is second to none. Christopher at SimpliFaster responds quickly to queries, and anyone who makes a purchase from SimpliFaster is in good hands. If you want to acquire some of the best high-tech training equipment available, stop by SimpliFaster.com. That's simply with an I, faster.com. They are the future of coaching technology. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Just Fly Performance Podcast. I'm your host, Joel Smith, and today on the show we have back Coach Adarian Barr. He is here on his second appearance. Since his last, I believe it was in the 60s, he was on before. I've had a number of people ask me when he's going to return. Coach Barr is a guy who thinks differently. He's an innovator, an inventor, and he's brought many athletes to personal bests that they didn't think they were personally capable of achieving. This guy, he has been a mentor to me over the last year and a half, and I've learned things I really never thought I'd ever look at with the human body, and it makes an amazing difference. And you have not only athletes who have reaped the benefits of Coach Barr's work, but also a lot of coaches now who are getting into some of his ideas and principles and how the foundations of athletic movement and doing things in their late 30s or 40s that just surprise them. When you figure out how the body works and you train in kind, great things happen. And one of the things I think that really resonate between me and Adarian is just really getting as far away from we can as the just get stronger coverall, the just produce more force coverall to try to achieve better marks. Because if that was the solution, we'd be breaking the world record in these track events many times over, but that certainly isn't happening. And so really digging deep into the biomechanics is just such an important thing, and no one has gone deeper that I've ever met or talked to or read about than Coach Barr. So if you aren't familiar with Coach's background, he went into it in the first episode, but Adarian, he has experience on a variety of levels coaching and has had a number of stops on the collegiate track and field circuit. He now works as a private coach and consultant. He has a website, barrunning.com, and frequently posts educational videos on various topics of athletic performance. Coach Barr, one of the things that stands out to me, as I had mentioned, is just has the ability to pick apart virtually any athletic feat. Not just sprinting or jumping, but tennis, baseball, swimming, javelin throwing, and put that into core components, and then give athletes and coaches the keys to really train those components to achieve PRs. And I've had such tremendous experience myself. I've jumped farther and sprinted faster than I thought I ever would in my mid-30s. I've sprinted faster than I was in my mid-20s just by learning some of the ways that the human body works in terms of timing and athletic posture, and how some of the cues that were very common were actually sending me backwards. And it wasn't until I started doing some things that Adarian had worked with me on that I was actually able to progress. And so I'm excited to have him back. On today's podcast, Adarian is going to talk very heavily about something that I think people talk about. Sometimes people talk about it as a good thing. Sometimes people think it's a bad thing, but that's asymmetry in athletic performance. So like people like, and an example would be like Usain Bolt has an asymmetrical stride. We also just witnessed the longest long jump the world has ever seen in like 20 years by a 19-year-old Cuban who has an asymmetrical run and a very long last stride, as opposed to what many people would coach in a very short last stride. And Coach Barr is going to go into the details of why the asymmetry, what are the rhythms behind that asymmetry, what is a short last step versus a long last step doing, how does asymmetry manifest itself in sprinting and timing, going into jumping. And it's just something that really permeates every athletic movement in some regard. We are not like these linear sagittal plane, every step the same as the next beans. We're machines that are much more complex. And so Adarian's going to go into that on a number of levels. He's going to talk about the big little rhythm and acceleration. He's going to talk a little bit about even how it goes into asymmetry, goes into distance running and field and court-based sports. And then finally, he's going to talk about training the foot. And you heard a little bit of a teaser there at the beginning. So again, if you are a coach that wants to dig deeper into athletic movement, and you really want to get that edge that comes from an intimate knowledge of human performance that can bring your athletes to new levels, you're going to love this episode. Before we get to the show as well, just wanted to let you guys know Coach Barr is going to be on a clinic series, the first two stops of which are in Santa Clara, California, and then Columbus, Ohio. The Santa Clara stop is going to be July 28th and 29th, so we're hosting that down at Zenith Strength and Performance. And you guys are in for a treat if you're able to make it out to that. So check out justflysports.com/rewire, or head on the main page, click on the foot with the circuits on the sideboard to read and learn more about that. And so I'd love to see you there. I think it's going to be an awesome clinic. And if you're like some of the other coaches who have learned from Coach Barr, you're going to get a lot out of it. So with that said, let's get on to the show. Adarian, welcome back to the show. Thanks for being here today.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. Really appreciate it.
Hey, so a lot of cool things, just kicking it off. Cool stuff happened in the world of track and field recently. Any thoughts on recent developments, big sprints and jumps and things you're seeing?
Jumps is crazy right now, but like I said, the Cuban guy, and let's remember too, this is not the first time Cuba's had a great long jumper. They have them and stuff like that with Pedrosa and everything. But the whole thing about it is, looking at this kid jump, and like I said, the biggest thing with me is timing is on point. I mean, things are where they're supposed to be at the right time. So when we talk about this whole speed loss, he has very little. I mean, he has very little speed loss to take off because things are where they're supposed to be. I was looking at some video of him when he was 16, and you always want to know, okay, what happened between 16 and 19, And his approach has changed. His flap is much better. And I imagine his flap got better, his timing got better. And so, and then we talk about asymmetry. I would say he's much more asymmetrical now than when he was 16.
Yeah, this is the 2811 long jumper, Ekavara, right?
Yeah. And I would think that a lot of people would go, well, the first thing people ask is, was it coached? I don't know, because I don't coach him. I'm just telling you what I see. But I know the things that he does can be coached. So when we talk about things like outliers, to me, it's not an outlier anymore when you see the sprinters do it, the jumpers do it, basketball players do it. If you see all these athletes doing the flap, it's not an outlier anymore. It isn't. But we don't want to teach it. It makes no sense. It isn't. When you see so much asymmetry, it's not an outlier anymore. And so that becomes the thing. When you see it across a broad spectrum of athletes, it's not an outlier.
Oh, yeah. That's one of the things I'm super excited to talk to you about today. And just after, I think it's been a year and a half we know each other, and I watch video now of running and jumping and athletes, especially I love dunking because none of those athletes have been coached a day in their life,
Right.
and they're
Right.
all doing it. And the flap too, before I get any farther, just you mentioned the flap. Do you want to do a quick little definition of that just for anyone listening there?
The flap is basically rotational arm swing instead of linear arm swing. It has rotational to it. And some people say external arm rotation as they interpret it. I say internal elbow rotation. Let the elbow rotate internally. Thing about it is it's so much faster in returning the arm to the front. And if it returns the arm to the front, that means the front side leg has to drop the back. So everything gets faster, but it's still about timing.
Yeah. So that, and then seeing like the wrist kind of will turn in the back a little bit too.
Right. If you had a certain pace, like the video I posted on Instagram with a Safa Powell at top end, you see the left side arm, that left side wrist is just, man, that thing is just turning and turning and turning. What's happening is the leg is getting back down to the ground sooner. The backside leg is getting to the front sooner. So it's just a way to be fast. And we know rotation movements are faster than linear moves. We know that. So, but like I said, the other part too is the word asymmetry, and people see it as a negative thing, but asymmetry is in us. One ear hears better than the other ear. Not hear better, but hears a different sound in the other ear. One eye, looks to the right, one looks to the left, and to better. But it's how these paired teams work, and they don't do the same thing. If they did the same thing, they'd be redundant and a waste. So asymmetry is about how to get one side do its job better, the other side do its job better, and now we have a better paired team, and I get a better performance.
Oh, right on. I like the audio example there too. Yeah, like in the headphones, the one ear that has the different, whatever's coming in the one ear is a little different tone or movement than the other ear, and it makes a better effect. And I always like crossing, worlds too. Not just, this isn't just track and field or athletics. It's kind of everything. Yeah?
It's about survival.
I love it, man. Well, hey, we were talking about Juan Miguel, Cuban long jumper, jumped 28.11 with just like a tick of a headwind, and number 3 in the world or all time, and no one's jumped that far in 20 years. And
20 years.
That's crazy. That's crazy. And this is what I wanted to get into. You're talking asymmetry. This guy is a really long last step, and people are like, oh, like this. It's kind of like throwing people for a loop, right? So tell me a little bit about what you're seeing in that takeoff and how that guy's putting that massive jump together.
Well, the whole thing is that the rhythm. So what I call big step, small step, or small step, big step. And so it's been known that we have a wave. And so a vertical, horizontal makes a wave. So in that sense there, what he's doing is that he's maintaining rhythm. The rhythm of the approach, he's maintaining that through takeoff and into his jump. A lot of us interrupt that rhythm. So in a sense that if I'm going small step, which would be a vertical movement, and then big step, horizontal movement, the next step after that has to be a vertical movement to maintain the rhythm. So another small step. So when we have jumpers, in a sense, we're coaching jumpers, and we say, I want this jumper to go higher. Well, you have to check out their rhythm first. If the rhythm is such that they can go higher, then okay. If the rhythm is such that they need to go horizontal and stay flat, then okay. But that's the beauty of it, is it's a great way to easily assess something and figure out, like, hey, But yeah, that thing is so long, it's crazy. But he's not the only one.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen a lot of jumpers with long lasts, short, long, and everything. But like I said, what's happening is he's going horizontal, and then what? Boom, he's vertical. So that's just the rhythm that he's got and everything. But it's an amazing thing that it just depends on what your approach is coming down the runway, big, small, big, and everything like that, how to set it up. And he doesn't have to really drop his hips. It's all built in, even, and like we talk about, deceleration, acceleration is all built into the system. It's an amazing. But the biggest thing, timing. His timing is on point.
Yeah, let's actually maybe deconstruct that takeoff and what you mentioned, the big, little, big. I know we were jumping together, or you're coaching me a little bit at that Masters track meet. It feels weird to say Masters track meet now. I'm like, God, I'm getting old. I jumped in the open though. But anyways, but you were talking, little, big, little. We were watching those athletes come down the runway, and you were seeing that. And it's crazy. It's the first time I really, truly paid attention to that. So maybe just for people out there too, who this is like the first time they're really thinking and understanding, because a lot of people, in jumping at least, probably always think short last step. I mean, when I was competing in college, I had no clue. I just jumped and just put it together, and it was what it was.
Right.
And I think I did pretty well, things considered. I feel like if actually someone was coaching me, I partly I wonder if I would have done worse, you know, like, but we always hear just little last step. And so what is the fundamental difference between the big last step and the little last step?
Well, the fundamental difference is the direction you can go afterwards, but also too is understand that there's a pair in everything we do. So a stride is 2 steps. So I got 2 steps in this stride and everything. But what happens is this here. In order to have that long last step, I need that smaller one because that's going to be the speed maintainer. So that gives me my speed to make sure I have that long last step and don't lose speed or air velocity throughout the long last step. If you have a short step, that means that you had a long step and you're running out of airspeed, so you have to put the foot down to maintain airspeed again. So either way, you can go either way. It's about maintaining air velocity or creating air velocity. The only difference is which direction you're going to go based on big or small. If the last step is big, then you're going to go vertical. If the last step is small, you should go horizontal after that. That's the only thing really. But overall, those last 2 steps being set up like that, big, or small, you're losing speed. Big, small, big, you're maintaining the speed.
Yeah, that was a big game changer when you mentioned that, because I was like the small, big. Because then I was all of a sudden thinking of like Levine in the dunk contest, who had a really long last step and goes up. And then I posted the video of Mike Conley Sr., the triple jumper in the dunk contest, with the long last step into dunking from the free throw line.
Right.
You got to go up to do that, yeah.
So, and that's what it becomes is, and you see Mike Powell wasn't able to do it. Mike Powell in that same dunk contest, rhythm was terrible. And so he wasn't able to do it because the rhythm was terrible. So a lot of times, rhythm's terrible, your timing's off, it's not going to work the same.
Yeah, I noticed that the dunk too, it was his last phase, his jump phase or his third phase that he jumped for that dunk instead of the first one. So the guy's probably so rhythmic it just came naturally to get up like that.
Right. Well, if you watch the whole thing, if you watch him with the ball and everything, I mean, he's keep the ball. He has this ball, and he's not running with the ball like this here. Yeah. He's actually running with the ball to make sure his rhythm stays the same. So of course it was. And what people forget here is this here. This is the biggest thing. That backside arm controls the impact of the front side leg. That's the amazing part. So and this wasn't one of the questions, but why is that important? Well, a lot of times you hear the word impact. You know, that the sprinters are creating impact. So what happens is that's the way they create impact. The speed that arm's coming forward at is going to make the front side leg drop, and now we have this impact at the ground, and then we get off the impact. If you swing it, you slap the ground, and now you don't have the impact anymore. That's a lot of, so why the flap? Because you want that thing to come around fast.
Yeah, so the flapping, and Sam Woos wrote like a rotational jumping article, and this all like you were saying, and people can't see it, but like basically if you're taking off your left leg on that moment, like you're bringing the ball to, I believe, the left side to create, just like the flap, to create time as you go up, instead of just holding the ball in front of you, which is going to do nothing and mess the. That's
nothing.
Like,
yeah. So it comes back to a time. It comes back to a timing issue. Timing, rhythm, rhythm. So yeah.
Awesome. I love it. So if people are looking at this now, they're like, okay, like big, little, people are starting to process this, as I've been. And now I'm looking at how do I do my run up? So whether it be track jumps or maybe implications for volleyball or basketball or whatnot. But what's your advice in terms of constructing an approach then? Some ideas in how do you look at your approach into that jump and optimizing that for each athlete?
Well, the whole thing is when we say big, small, big, realize that there is no set length to any one of those. One step has to be bigger than the other. One step has to be smaller than the other, regardless which, and it could be an inch bigger, it could be 3 inches bigger. It could be a quarter inch smaller, but you need that exchange going on. So even when for instance, if I'm jumping, and a lot of times at jumps they say you need to push hard out the back. You need to get more speed out the back. No, I wouldn't say that. I would say, hey, I need to make this first step smaller. I need to because I want to make it faster. If I want to get more speed, let me make this first one smaller. Then the big one, now I have speed going to that next one, small, big. So I'm gaining speed now. So it's one of those things. But the easy way to construct it is to understand that when we say big or small, big, that portions is just that. One has to be bigger, one has to be smaller. That's it. The exact dimensions, That's not the thing. So people get caught in the exact, well, how much bigger or how much smaller? That's not the thing. It's getting to the rhythm of and even in hurling, sometimes in hurling they may call it a cut step, where they have this step and they're gonna cut it down really fast. That's a small step. And then what happens? I'm gonna cut down this small step and then I get this big step over the hurdle. See what I'm saying? It's in everything we do. We just don't see it that way. So why? So same thing. If you're hurdling, what do the not so fast hurdlers do? They don't have the cut step. So now they get this long glide over the hurdle instead of cut step, which starts my speed. Now I got speed to maintain the airspeed through the air.
You're listening to the Just Fly Performance Podcast, brought to you by SimpliFaster. No, that's just it's a game changer. Like, it just changes the way we think of all movements. And for those people listening too, who might not be track coaches, we're going to get to some other things down the line, like swinging,
basketball,
and
volleyball,
hitting,
baseball.
Yeah.
I mean, think about stealing a base. You setting up a big small issue if you're stealing a base. If you ever watch Ricky Henderson steal a base, that right foot picks up and drops down. That really was his big step. And then the next step technically was a small step. And then he was off to the races. So you have to watch. And like I said, a lot of times you see people stepping out even more. Well, you don't have any speed because your legs are already spread apart. That's a big step already. So you can't go any further, and you're trying to, doesn't work like that. So Ricky was actually put that foot down really fast. He's already big. And then the next step was small. And then boom, he was gone. So yeah, baseball, it does basketball, volleyball, it's a rhythm.
Yeah, taking something to something universal too, just like a sprint start, just from a crouch position or 3-point, or if you're running a 40-yard dash, or some of the things these sprinters, we were just talking about a little bit before on the elite, super elite world level. Just maybe chat a little bit about the big, little in that sprint start and how that sets up the rhythm.
Well, yeah, same thing. A lot of people have been caught up on block clearance, and so, but the whole thing about that is you're not moving yet. So you have to generate something. So if you come out with too big of a step out the blocks, air velocity is slow. And that's the whole thing about it. If you want to be fast, you got to go through the air fast. And so if you come out with a too big of a step out the blocks, air velocity is slow. So I'm going to put something down so I can create some type of air velocity out the get-go, and that becomes a thing. So I'm going to, and people call it zero step, which is funny. People, it depends on how you count. 0 step, 1 step. I always say 1, 2, 3, but some people say 0 step out the blocks. But what's funny is actually that first step really shouldn't go that far because I'm trying. It's a small step. I'm trying to go. The next step is going to be big because now I can get through the air. Now I have this pattern set up, and like I said, I'm going through the air fast. So I'm not trying to create this frequency of being on the ground. I'm trying to create this air velocity. If I go through the air fast, it's a wrap.
Yeah, and I'm sure you would see that in pretty much any linear speed team sport where the athletes weren't thinking about it, who are advanced level and fast. They probably just do that naturally.
Right. Somebody sent me a video the other day of Barry Sanders, and there was one other guy, Michael Vick. He sent me a video of Michael Vick, and he said he always thought something was wrong with Michael Vick because he looked like he's running on one leg. No, that was a small big pattern. It was a small big pattern, but he said always looked weird. I just never could figure it out. Then he goes, it was a small big pattern. That's what it was.
What would you say to people? I think this is fairly common in track and field, and I want to obviously keep this revolving on all sports and generalize, but I think this is a universal principle. But like in track and field, people would say, okay, if you do that, it's going to hurt you later in the race or whatever. And I think Usain Bolt maybe has, Usain Bolt obviously shows a lot of these characteristics too. So
right.
What's your thoughts on people who, that and then conserving energy and later in the race and all these things and how it manifests itself as you get up into speed and running?
The whole thing about any race, is that a lot of components are a lot of things are going on. But the biggest thing is to realize that if I can maintain this rhythm throughout the race, I'm going to be much better off. And so one of the things when I posted a video of Tyson Gay and Usain Bolt, when Bolt goes 9.58, Tyson Gay goes, I think 9.71, fast. I mean, if both in that race, Tyson Gay wins that race but what are they both doing? They both are trying to start running as soon as possible out the blocks. They don't have a dry phase. They're trying to start. So you got these two guys, the two fastest guys in the race, are trying to start running as soon as possible. Now, to me, why did Tyson Gay lose that race? His timing was off because he started running before Bolt, but the timing was killing him. By the time he got the timing down, race is over. But you look at these things of first of all, let me establish some type of rhythm, and that's going to be the part of it. But the other part too is asymmetry throughout the race. At top end, one needs to come a little bit higher than the other one. You know why? Because one needs coming higher so it can pound the ground still, and one wants to be, so I got to pound, no pound, pound, no pound. So asymmetry is throughout the whole race, but it's the same rhythm: big, small, big, small, big, small. You know, even like when we talk about high to low, and high to low is the concept that says, hey, wherever the heel of your foot, gets to its highest point on the backside, it must start a downward trajectory towards the ground. Period. If you want to be fast. And the literature tells you what? The literature tells you to attack the ground. See what I'm saying? So sometimes when you say things, people don't know what's being said. It's like the literature says to attack the ground. And the faster, the more velocity that this foot carries to the ground, the greater impact is going to be. Once again, what are they saying? Elite sprinters have great impact. So now, but what are people being taught? They're being taught that the heel gets to a high point, which they don't recognize. They just say the foot. So the heel's at a high point. And then what they try to do, they drag it around to another point that's not towards the ground. If you watch what Usain Bolt did, heel to the ground, heel to the ground, heel to the ground. That's the whole, and at top end, what is he still doing? Heels at the high point, it may be at his butt, but it's going from his butt straight to the ground. So if you have this 5 feet of acceleration towards the ground versus a foot because you brought your foot to another point and then tried, that's the difference between attacking the ground and running fast and not running fast. You know?
Yeah. I think too, to help people kind of understand that as well, and these are some thoughts kind of I had. Well, first I'll say that there's that slow motion sprint video that like everyone in the world who watches sprinting has seen with Bolt, and then Lemaitre's right next to him, and I think that's like the contrast. Like Bolt's leg is coming at a more straight line down towards the ground to recover his heel, and Lemaitre's like, it goes, like you told me, it goes up and then forward in front of him first, and then it goes down.
Right. So he has 1 foot to try and impact the ground versus Usain Bolt have 5 feet to impact the ground. Big difference. You know. So yeah, but like I said, what's funny is when I see those videos, and so people get into this technique thing. To me, it's not a technique. To me, it's like, why is this guy losing, and why is this guy winning? Because that's what it comes down to: winning and losing. So they still all fast. That's why you got to stay away from technique stuff in that sense of bad technique, good technique. They're still fast people. So same thing, we look at the current stuff in track, like I said, the current stuff in track and field. Why is Baker beating Coleman? Why is Reese beating Sue? Because at the end of the race, at the top end portion of the race, they're getting their feet down faster than those guys are. Plain and simple. How they doing it? That's another topic. But plain and simple, they're getting their feet down faster than they are. That's it.
Oh, yeah. And not to rabbit trail too much from the asymmetry topic we're on, and then getting into other sports as well, but I think this is a really fascinating point, and you had posted something about this. It's like 800-meter runners. Those guys aren't getting their knees up in front of them. It's a lot of backside, I guess you would call it, mechanics, and then impact. Do you want to talk about that a little bit in running? Because I think it's more universal maybe than we think on some level, like how those guys are way in behind themselves a little bit with their feet in the race.
Well, like I said, the biggest thing is we have to stop saying bad technique, imperfect technique, incorrect technique. If a guy's running, he's running. If a guy's sprinting, he's sprinting. So what is the person that's winning the race doing differently than the person that's losing the race? And so it comes down to some basic things, just as simple as that. Who is attacking the ground better? So as a distance runner, I'm still going to have this high point, and my foot's still going to come to the ground. You know, still coming to the ground. And I think even Usain Bolt might have borrowed something from distance runners about, high to low, because at top end, he really looks like a distance runner. So that becomes a thing. But the most important part of this is this here. And it would be another topic, but then that's when we get into shin angles and something I learned from Jonas about knee blocking and how I interpreted knee blocking. We talked about it, I interpreted it. And so as a sprinter, I want my shin angles to match. When my shin angles match, that's when I'm going to do something. And why do I want to match at this certain time? Because it's going to add to the speed I go through the air at. So now, as a distance runner, I want to do it at a different time. Why? Because it's going to add to the speed that I'm going through the air at. But I'm not trying to do it like a sprint. I'm trying to do it like a distance runner. So as a distance runner, I don't want my shins to line up when I knee block in a sense. As a sprinter, I want to line up, knee block, and I'm gone.
Yeah, that's
So that becomes a thing. But yeah, it's the same stuff. Like I said, that's why even with we talk about the rewire clinic that's coming up. It's about running being the base of every movement that's going on, whether you're hitting, whether you're throwing, it has some running components to it. And so how do we take those and transfer them over? That's what Rewire Clinic is about.
Oh yeah. Just going to postural restoration type seminars and various things I've been through. The gait is the foundation of so many things, and you can take that and then extrapolate it into pretty much everything. I want to, for those people who are non-track who are listening and tuning in, I was going to ask you too, and you show videos of like tennis and baseball hitting. Can we talk a little bit about asymmetry that you'll see in like a baseball swing or a golf swing or tennis, and maybe some examples there?
Well, even with that there, what's funny is as why is it that some guys can bat left or right? Some can, some can't, most can't. Why? Because of the jobs. You can't switch the jobs. You know what I'm saying? Same thing with why you may have a backhand or a forehand, and then the other way you can't do it because of the jobs are different, and each side knows its job, but it knows the other person's job. And so all of a sudden at the last minute, if you try to say, hey, do the job of the other side, and that's where things go wrong at. But that's the biggest thing, like with asymmetry, we see it a lot in the fact that, or take a football player. Let's just take a football player. And you're a lineman. You move well to the right, but not to the left. That's asymmetry. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just asymmetry thing. If you can go both ways really well, that's really good. But for the most part, because of asymmetry, because I have a leg that likes to do this, maybe it push, maybe it decelerate, and that's the biggest thing that we get in asymmetry is acceleration, deceleration. That's the biggest thing with the legs, acceleration, deceleration. And so what happens is, if I'm jumping, one leg will allow me to continue to accelerate downward. And then the other leg is going to stop that in reverse direction, accelerate me upward. That's all that happens is that you don't have to practice deceleration. It's built into the movement already based on asymmetrical principles, no matter what movement it is. I remember when I played tennis, I was taught to throw the ball, pull the racket back, and then smash the ball. Now, funny, I got good at that. But what I really see the best tennis players, they squat down first, toss the ball, and then go get it. But once again, you have to understand how to accelerate in both directions, which is asymmetrical principle, in order to do that. Me? Nobody's told me that. They just told me to toss the ball and go at it. Okay, and I made it work. But I could have made it work better if I understood, like, hey, man, squat down, and as you squat, release the ball up, and then go get it. And what's one hand doing? As so you get into those type of things with asymmetry in volleyball. Why you have an outside hitter and one person is a middle? It's asymmetrical principles based on what leg likes to jump, one leg doesn't like to jump or accelerate and decelerate, things like that. Which side is going to flap for you, which side isn't going to flap for you. One arm baseball, one arm wants to extend, one arm wants to hold in tight. But once again, you have a paired team working together to make these things happen.
Yeah, so speaking of the jumping, because this is something that you were showing a little bit, like the band and let's just say like you're a left-right plant or left-right-left plant jumper off two legs. So I push off my left long, then I go right-left into the takeoff, which I think a lot of people listen to this podcast really pretty familiar with. And what I've learned from you, at least what I take it to be, is that two-leg jump, when done really well, has a lot of similarities to that one-leg jump, like the job of that left leg pushing and planting and the job of the right leg. Could you break that down a little bit on how each of the jobs of those legs as you go through the movement?
I mean, most of the time, the reason I think it's a one-legged jump, even though it's off two legs, the only way I say you jump off two legs if you're static, if you're standing from a standstill, if you're moving, because what's going to happen is in the rhythm of it, you're going to take a small step, big step. Now the recovery leg is going to take a small step. By the time that one touches down, you already hit it up. So it's a rhythm of small, big, small. So if you go small, big, so that becomes a rhythm: small step, big step, small step. And then the next thing is going to be a big step, which is what you see a lot of those guys, especially those guys that are launching and jumping far. Or you can go big steps, small step, big step. But those three steps is just that. It's the rhythm being continued on. And so a lot of people struggle because they don't have that red step, big step. The next the next step, that back leg, the recovery leg coming forward, is another step. And so, like the video you posted, what I'm struggling with right now in my jumps is why I can't really jump far from the basket. Why? Because if you see, when I take my small step, big step, my small step is right next to my jump leg. If I can get it in front just a little bit, it'll change my whole jumping. But I'm struggling with that. And so, but I know what to do. I just can't get that thing there fast enough to get in front of me. And still, so a lot of it is just that. It's still the rhythm. It's still, small, big, small, and everything like that. And it's still got to have the arms tied to it with the flap and everything. You'll see a lot of people, too, when we talk about asymmetry again, you'll see the left arm flap, and that's what dictates a lot. What arm likes the flap is going to dictate a lot of your jump rhythm. And so, like, I posted something about the one guy playing basketball, and it was he did a nice thing where he's dribbling the ball with his left hand, but he needs to flap with his left hand. Pushes the ball to the right hand, flaps with the left. Next thing you know, the guy's off the ground. But it was just an amazing setup. Like, that was pretty nice. Now, has he trained to do that? Probably not, but he knows what? I need to flap with the left arm, so I'm going to push the ball back to the right arm. When I push it, I'm going to flap all in the same motion. It was an amazing thing. So we see these things all the time as far as the rhythm of jumping, the asymmetry that's involved in running and jumping, throwing, and everything like that. Even think about this here. What is the back leg doing when you're hitting? And we've been watching videos on hitting. Like I said, I'm no hitting instructor. I'm just a movement person. And when I watch those videos, I've been seeing like the back leg's not even on the ground when they hit the ball. I'm like, the back leg's not on the ground. It's most times being drugged forward. But in that hitting, what's that? You seen a step pattern. You seen a step pattern. Big, small, small, big. The thing is, what I noticed is, and this is the difference between, even pitching and hitting. The timing of, you have the glute that's going to externally rotate the leg. And then you have the quad that's going to extend the knee. When the knee extends, the bat's hitting the ball. It's an amazing thing. Same thing happens with pitchers. When the knee extends, the arm's coming forward. Now, take javelin. It's the opposite. Throwing the javelin is the opposite sequence, where the quad will extend first, and then the glute rotates. Which is why, once again, we think that we should take every pitcher and make them throw a javelin far. We can't, because the sequence is different. That's the only thing. The sequence changes.
You're listening to the Just Fly Performance Podcast, brought to you by SimpliFaster. Yeah, the timing of that stuff is really interesting. I had a couple of thoughts. The first was, like what you were saying with baseball, the timing being so different than, I know in like my time in the track and field world, talking with throwers and throws coaches, there's like, the kick the cone drill, or like everything's taught off that if you're a right arm thrower or you're throwing with your right arm, it's like, push with your right leg. But then I watched the baseball player, and like you said, that right foot is off the ground, so clearly it's not pushing for very long, and that left leg in front is doing a job that is very substantial in getting that bat around. And then how you mentioned the pitcher too, I was thinking about, I did a podcast with Don Chu where he was talking about single leg bounding helping the pitcher's velocity, and that pitcher is probably getting more out of their back leg. That back leg has a different job in timing than in pushing, for a right-handed throw, obviously, than the batter. And so, just thinking about that timing, I think it really can change the way we prescribe and think of special exercises for these guys, or the way that we would teach them.
Right. Well, I mean, even exercise you did, what do we say? Hey, man, you got to get that timing back into it. With the med ball. I mean, great. That was an outstanding exercise, outstanding drill, because you see you see the big, you see the small, but your arms can't help you.
Yeah.
So if you switch that up so the arms can help you, that'd be like boom drill. But yeah, it's what we leave out of one of the most important thing about being a good athlete is timing. The exceptional athletes have exceptional timing.
Yeah, actually, I'm going to put that in the show notes, that med ball drill I did, because when I was doing it, I was like, this is cool. I feel like I know Adarian's going to say something, and now the med ball is screwing up my, my left leg coming forward. And you're totally right. Like, because my arms were static in the middle of that med ball drill, which if you're listening at home, I'm going to post this on Just Fly Sports on the show notes. But basically the fact that I'm not taking that med ball outside of my body to help that left leg come forward faster is going to throw it off. So it's like, I think that drill still has benefits.
Oh, great benefits. No, that's an outstanding drill.
But yeah, but it's not going to help your timing. And I was watching, and I just released an article on this that will be posted before this podcast. But Mac McClung, he's headed to Georgetown. I posted one of his dunks on Instagram just because that guy's timing is unreal. Just because, like, I think getting a long last step into those two, the quick 1-2 of the takeoff is one thing, but the timing associated with that is another. That's what allows that guy to do that. Because, you know what, there's a lot of people who could probably make themselves do that long of a last step if they really tried, but to sync everything up to the point where it's all there when you need to take off, there's not. I don't think there's a whole lot of people that can really do it like that guy does, and that's what's so impressive to me about that.
Yeah. No, like I said, timing and you know, one of the things I learned is that I already know what I want to do. If I can figure out the timing of a movement, then I can figure out why it's being done that way. And so that's what we're missing. We're missing that timing element. And so a lot of times we don't understand the why portion of it. We understand what we're supposed to be doing. So you get into those things, which is, and I think we had a question about feet, but that would bring you to, like, what are feet doing for you? Because with asymmetry is footwork. And the foot is telling you a whole lot of stuff about a whole lot of things. And one of the things that feet really tell you is where you are in space and time. How fast are you moving forward? Because of cross-extension reflex. If you remove a base, you got to replace it with a base. Plain and simple. So if you're moving so fast forward that you're at the edge of the ledge and you're not ready to move that base to replace the base, or remove a leg to replace the leg, guess what your body's going to do? It's going to slow down your forward movement because it knows you're not ready yet. And that's that. You see that a lot in jumping and in running, where the foot is actually grabbing the ground to stop you from moving forward because the other leg's not in place yet.
Yeah, that fits with what you're talking about, deceleration too. Like, and that's just so cool. Like, when you watch these jumps in slow motion, like, it's like this leg is doing the job of, you know, deceleration or acceleration. So why do we need to? It's like people are so obsessed with training people to a dead stop. Like, why is that I mean, I get it. I get it. Like, you should be able to do it with some ability, but it's like it happens in movement all the time.
Not only that, but think about this. Your fastest movement are when something's in motion already. There's nothing fast from a dead stop. Nothing. So if you're pushing a car, right, it's easy to turn the steering wheel when the wheels are rolling, versus try to turn that steering wheel when the car isn't rolling. So there's nothing from a dead stop is the hardest way to move. Mm-hmm. And so the thing, and that's why I tell people, never train somebody to stop, because I don't have to stop. Yeah. I'm always in motion. I'm going to stay in motion. I just need to change direction of the movement, but I don't have to stop to do that. I just need to understand how to manipulate that motion to change the direction.
Oh, right on. And I think maybe part of it is just because the simple, very baseline deceleration drills are very easy to, I guess, coach. It's just like, stop and be in this position, you know, like, or what the position the coach thinks that might be. But it's certainly more complex and that's why I think we need to watch video more. I think that people just don't watch video enough and really look at these things very closely. And even with what you're talking about, I'm like, okay, I got a lot more things I need to watch right now. But I think that it's definitely more complex, but it makes the biggest difference in the world, and the elite athletes are doing this anyways. I wanted, before we get to the feet, you mentioned that, and I want to finish our talk with that, but maybe some implications for when athletes are doing plyometrics based off asymmetry, because I think that's a big game changer versus just like, okay, you're going to do hurdle hops and everything's the same, and not that stuff isn't helpful, but right. Concepts on maybe some alters and some tweaks to how we look at our plyometric training based off of this.
Right. Well, the first thing is this here. You know, you have to change the thought of plyometric training. You know, because if you ask somebody, you know, plyometric training's got so far off skew, is crazy. You know, you see people jumping, they call it, that's not a plyometric. It's a jump, but it's not a plyometric. And so you have to go into, okay, what's a plyometric as defined? You know, where you have this you know, short stretch cycle, you know, cycling phase going on, all that kind of stuff, where I'm trying to lengthen something to shorten something. You know, I want to lengthen something to shorten something. The whole question becomes, first is, what are you trying to lengthen to shorten? And people just do plyometrics, but what are you shortening? What are you going to lengthen so you can shorten it? For instance, and that's why I say eccentric training. I don't call it plyometric. I say eccentric training. For instance, in running and jumping, there's a big eccentric component to it, like my glutes. As you accelerate downward, the glutes are being lengthened. So now I'm gonna shorten them. That's all it is. So with plyometric training, the first thing people have to think about is, what am I trying to lengthen to shorten? That's always gonna be the first question. From there, we can start going, okay, this is what I want to do now. So you get into this double leg or single leg stuff, it's the same thing. I'm trying to maintain movement. I don't want to stop movement. So once I'm into this plyometric movement, how do I maintain movement? That becomes the thing. If you're running, you're not going to stop. So from there, whether people get into the force absorption, where they're trying to do stiff legs and things like that, they want to absorb force and bounce back up. But once again, if we're really doing plyometrics, what are we going to lengthen to shorten? And then what do we start talking? And this becomes a funny thing, and talking to Jonas, he helped me with some of the terminology and stuff, but it's one of the craziest thing ever. Where what's the next topic everybody talking about? Taking up slack. Well, if you're trying to take up slack, you don't want to do plyometric training, because you got slack in the, you're introducing slack to the system. So it's these funny things that we start dealing with. But one of the things Jonas told me about athletic posture is that it's the ultimate way to take up slack in the system. Now, after that point, then I said yes. And so after that point, what do we start talking about? How do I maintain the tension I just took up? That becomes the thing. Athletic posture takes up the slack out of the system. Now, as I move about, whether I'm throwing something, where I'm hitting, what I'm doing next, it becomes the point of, how do I maintain that tension in the system throughout the movement? That's what being a good athlete is.
Yeah, that's cool stuff. Actually, if I'm trying to wrap my head. I know you've talked with me about slack, and this just for clarifying with everyone out there, could you just maybe go into detail a little bit on slack in the system and plyometrics? Because I think there was a lot in there, and that basically that one sentence that you said.
Right.
Could you unpack that a little bit?
What's funny is here, in taking up slack and talking about fascia and everything like that. When you talking about fascia, is if I pull on, something has to give and take in the system, and that becomes the beauty of it. So with the movement, once you pre-tense the movement or tense up the body in a sense with athletic posture, I must maintain that. So if something moves, if something takes, something must give for the movement to stay, so the tension can stay the same throughout the system. But when we're doing plyometrics, that's what we're trying to figure out. Okay, I have this tension. How do I maintain the tension throughout the plyometrics? That becomes the whole thing. But I think that with plyometric training, the biggest thing that has to happen is this here. Understand more than anything else what it is you're trying to lengthen. Are you trying to lengthen the Achilles? Are you trying to lengthen the glutes? Are you trying to lengthen, and throughout it, you have different, lengthening and shortenings going on. But now think about this here. A shortened muscle is the best muscle to work with. And what I mean by that is this here. If I'm in blocks, I'm going from blocks, I have some shortened muscles already that I'm trying to work with. I have some lengthening muscles that I'm trying to work with too. So one of those things that happen is, who's already short and who's already long. If somebody's short, work with the short one to work with the long one. And for instance, we'll say once we start running, external rotation of the leg. If my feet are already semi-pointed out, or if their glutes semi-engaged already, it's already short. So guess what? If my biceps here, I'm going to get the same pop out of it. If I start here, I got to wait to get here before I get that pop out of it. So why not start here in the first place? So that's the same thing with glutes. And a lot of people don't like the foot being externally rotate, all that kind of stuff. But that's a short muscle. So now if we get back to plyometrics, what do I really want to do? Do I want to try and lengthen the muscle to shorten the muscle, or do I want to have a short muscle already? That becomes the questions of the day, But the biggest thing with plyometric training is, what am I trying to lengthen to shorten?
Yeah, the way I kind of look at what you just said a little bit, and I'd like to get some feedback with you if I'm on the right track, is the sense of just look at say a linear hurdle hop, which I think does have a lot of benefits, ankle stiffness, like being really stiff at a longer muscle length, but it doesn't, like a hurdle hop doesn't necessarily get you in that point where you're lengthening the glutes a lot into a forward horizontal movement and then pairing that with a vertical. It just works on a tense everything up, go really high, come back down, tense everything up again, versus and I'm trying to maybe put this in, if you were coming out of blocks or maybe doing a long low horizontal step into a vertical step, those muscles are at a lot of different strength a lot of different state of length and tension in that long, low
Right.
horizontal step to the vertical than just, vertical, vertical, vertical. That's kind of my take on it, at least
Yeah.
how you just said.
So now let's take that same hurdle hop. Let's take that same hurdle hop. Let's take that same hurdle hop, right? And so now externally rotate your feet just a little bit. So who am I lengthening now? Who am I shortening now? Well, my glutes are already shortened, so I don't want to lengthen them anymore because they're ready to pop for me. So who am I going to lengthen now? I'm going to lengthen my Achilles. So they see what I'm saying? It just became we can mix and match these things if we understand how to mix and match them. And that's why I say everybody's right. So we take a plyometric concept and take it to a pre-shortening muscle concept, combine the two together, and you get boom, much more. So at that point in time, you say, okay, I'm going to do the hurdle hop. Who am I going to lengthen? Well, let me lengthen the Achilles. As I go down, I'm going to lengthen the Achilles, but I want to keep my glutes short already. So that way, when I hit the ground, what's going to happen? Man, I'm getting a 2-for-1 deal. Glutes pop, Achilles pop, boom, off the ground I go.
I look at that, and this means a lot to me because I'm an athlete who, when I was playing basketball, which is basically, I would say true plyometrics, because you're always operating through little, big, long, short. It's all very athletic, and the timing's there, and it's very specific. And I've gotten to points in my life where I wasn't playing as much sport, and I was just doing plyometrics, so just bounding, just linear bounding, everything the same rhythm, just hurdle hops, everything vertical projection. And I was a very explosive, dynamic athlete. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that stuff, but I felt like my dunking had gotten worse. My high jumping had gotten a little worse. And I feel like when this team sport was there, the way that my body projected and timed itself was always maintained. And if I got away from that and just did a plyometric, the timing and that big little projection and all the muscle lengths associated with it were lost.
Right.
And if I got to playing again, if I just played 1-2 games of basketball after the game, I was jumping 2-3 inches higher just because it's like everything came back to me.
Right. So that becomes a thing. Yeah, we have to understand when we practice something, the timing is going to change. And like I said, the biggest thing with plyometrics is who am I going to lengthen, who am I going to shorten, who am I going to tense, who am I not going to tense up?
Mm-hmm.
And the cycle's happening so fast, it's crazy. So one of the things that I always talk about is how do I do something voluntary to get an involuntary reaction? And a whole lot of I don't want involuntary reaction. I want a whole lot of, the better I can be and stuff like that. But like I said, the biggest thing with plyometrics is this here. Technically, to me, pretty much everything you do should have been a plyometric. If you're running, if you're chewing gum, right? Because something has, you know what I'm saying? Something has to happen. I'm going to stretch something, and my jaws are going to snap down. You're talking about ultimate plyometric snapping turtle, right? Jaws, pow, ultimate plyometric. So that becomes the thing: is what am I going to lengthen to shorten? What am I going to tense to? That becomes a thing to me. But as we do these things and everything, you have to understand the timing, the sequence, when this is going to happen. And we have to be careful not to alter the sequence or the timing of the sequence.
Yeah, I agree. And that's something too where, I feel like we could talk for this for hours too. Ultimately, just even working with you in person has made that a lot easier for me to understand. But I think through the videos too, and hopefully people listening to this will eventually get a chance to work with you. But I always think, being taken through it is definitely something.
Yeah, you have to, But like I said, and then the thing with this is that all of a sudden, does it really matter if you jump over a hurdle or jump onto a bleacher or those things don't start to matter anymore. If the goal is the goal, then does it make a difference if I hop over a hurdle or hop onto a bleacher or hop onto, because all that still should be the same. That's the part that I get confused about. It is like, when you see somebody, hopping onto a hurdle and then they say there's something different with the one they're going to do when they hop onto the bleacher stand or to the box or something like that, To me, it's like I tell in my health class that we've made up a lot of stuff that the brain doesn't understand, so that we're trying to understand it, but technically the brain doesn't. It just knows you want to get up on top of the box. It just knows you want to get over the hurdle, and this is what it's going to do to get you over the hurdle on top of the box. Call it what you want to call it, a jump. Call it what you want to call it. All the brain knows is you need to get up and over something. Okay, this is how we're going to do it then.
You're listening to the Just Fly Performance Podcast, brought to you by SimpliFaster. Yeah, right on. And that was something I posted in the last article too, is like for a lot of athletes, the brain sees what that you want to do and it puts the joints in the right place at the right time with awesome timing. And we can just learn so much from watching those athletes who do that really well. I want to, probably the last few minutes here, I did want to touch on the foot before we run out of time. So a couple of questions I really wanted to get to. Well, the main one is, in training the foot, what are some mistakes people make? I know we've had a little interchange here. What are
Well,
some big mistakes people are making?
the the biggest mistake I think is in strengthening the foot, not saying anything or strengthening the toes. I mean, think about this here. You've been walking on this thing. I mean, I'm 52. I've been walking on my feet for 52 years now, or thereabouts. Take off a year for that first year I didn't walk on them. Give me 50 years of walking on I've been walking. When did they get weak? When did they get weak in this process? So those are kind of things that I always find funny is people say, I want to strengthen them. But the whole thing about it is that you have to understand, what are your feet doing for you? What is the function of the feet? And so, yeah, if I'm moving forward, my feet have to tell me how fast I'm moving forward. They have to know that information, because if not, you're going to trip and fall. What's the other person of the foot? The foot will stiffen up because it's fluid in there. When they hit the ground, they're going to stiffen up. When they stiffen up, the rest of the system will stiffen up too. Now, the other part about this is this here. Pronation is so misunderstood. It's so misunderstood. So one of the things that happens is, as you move, once again, I want constant movement. That big toe is not meant to be pushed off of. It's not. You can stand on it all day long, but to push off of it is a really poor lever to push off of. But guess what? You can roll over it all day. So if you're actually what we call active pronation, if you're actually pronating, then guess what? The other side can stay in action longer because I'm not at the edge yet. If you go to heel toe, or if you go, what do we call, to a neutral, your foot's going to put the brakes on for you because you're at the edge. So the biggest thing with the foot and athletic movement is understand how to stay away from the edge. That's the biggest thing. The foot is not weak. It's the fact that you're at the edge, and now you're reinforcing being it. When you start strengthening your toes and all that, you're going to reinforce being at the edge and gripping the ground and hold. And remember, claws are meant for gripping. And the stronger they are, the more I can grip the ground. I'm not saying things wrong with that because it has its time and place. There is a time and place where I want to grip the ground and hold strong. But if I'm trying to run, that's not the time. I'm not trying to grip ground. I'm not trying to grab ground. I'm trying to roll right over and keep on going. So that becomes the thing. Same thing. If you want to do a jump step, that might be a good time to grip the ground. So I want to stop right away. Then I'm going to release the ground so I can jump again. So there's a time and place for all those things. But there is no one thing for everything, and that's where we get in trouble with strengthening, with solely focusing on strengthening the toes. Strengthen them all you want to, but it's not the end all be all and everything like that. Now, the whole thing with feet, more than anything else, understand that big toe and 6 axis. What I mean by that is the big toe, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It has 6 axes on it, and so as you're moving, it's going to go through all 6 of those things. And most people don't get that part, which is why I can raise the pinky toe and keep the big toe on the ground, because that's one. I'm rolling this way, which is why I can lift the pinky toe and flex forward. I'm really working those 6 axes. But guess what? If I claw the ground, all that goes away. If I try to push off the ground with the big toe, all that goes away. So I lose a lot of movability just because I don't understand that 6 axis at the big toe. It's a very unique, very cool thing. We just misunderstood it.
Yeah, that 6 axis, and just for like people out there who, I try to picture this in their mind's eye. It's for the frontal plane, basically.
Down, left to right, and twist, counterclockwise and clockwise. Those are the 6 axes.
Yeah, so it's not, and yeah, like you say, I mean, we talk about big toe a lot, but in practice, like, the impact of sprinting is so great, and the acceleration and all that stuff. To think like I could really literally hold all my body weight with a flexed big toe and push off of it, like with nothing else touching the ground. Like, I mean, to me, the dampening systems of the body as we move through supination, pronation, supination is just unbelievable. And then the rear foot, I think we like to just like really polarize things into you push off the big toe. But yeah, like you said, it doesn't really work entirely that way. And when you talked about over gripping and clawing, that was mind blowing for me, because I'm just coming fresh off of Chongji and the hyper arch, which is awesome stuff. Don't get me wrong.
Great stuff. Even I learned some stuff from that. Great stuff.
Oh yeah, but then all of a sudden you listen, and all of a sudden everything's claw toes, and I'm like, wait, I have some like swimmer breaststrokers who can't jump for shit, but are pretty fast at sprinting. Like, I'm like, okay, well, how does this, how does this work? How does that go? And so yeah, it really is cool to see those worlds all collide.
Yeah, so I mean, because the biggest thing is even like inside edge. We have to be able to shift our mind, and so inside edge, and like I said, the triangle and all that kind of stuff. Well, I just shift the triangle over inside edge. I'm running a straight line from the big toe to the heel, and then I'm running a line to the apex of the ball of the foot back to the big toe. That's my triangle. So I still got this strong base to stand on. So a lot of times, what you see in a running video, this is a funny thing. What you see in a running video is this here. You see the outside of the heel off the ground, but who's on the ground? The inside part of the heel.
Mm-hmm.
So people, but if I start running, where am I at? I'm on this front part. That's why I can run on inside edge, because I'm still on this triangle base. But I'm not trying to push off of it. I'm just trying to stand on it so that everybody else can work off of it, and that becomes the thing. But once I get going, I need more time. So in order to get more time, the body starts to adjust rearward on the foot as where it's going to strike the ground at. So, and that's what's funny. Even though you may see a heel off the ground, guess what? The inside of the heel is probably on the ground as your body moves forward. And think about it. Why is pinky toe up? Because it protects the integrity of the arch of the foot. You don't have to wait to get to the big toe to flex to get to the windlass mechanism. Pinky toe gets that going already. So it's just the foot is crazy. A lot of cool stuff going on. But like I said, strengthening the foot, when did they get weak? That's the first question. Mm-hmm. And then how do you judge a weak foot? A lot of these things, even like with core, when I ask people, you got a weak core, what test did you run to figure out you had a weak core? Just tell me what assessment did you do? Because you've been standing up. So if you can stand up, roll out of bed and all those kind of things, your core is okay. Whatever we call the core, whatever we call it. But we get into these things of, I know if I have a weak bicep, you know what I'm saying? If I cannot curl my arm up, that's a weak bicep. And I got tests for that. And I can tell when it gets stronger. I go from curling, 25 pounds to curling 100 pounds. It got stronger. How do we do it up the foot?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think, the fact that even like my daughter's like almost 2 now, and sometimes she'll like kick me or stand up on my lap and jump up and down. And I'm like blown away by just the impact of the balls of her feet, like how much impact a 2-year-old can put through that. And I'm like, I do agree. I think we very quickly go to, this is weak, how can I make it stronger, versus looking in a more holistic point of view, and how does force actually go through and go out of the foot, and are we moving in that manner? So I think that's good stuff.
Right. Well, I mean, think about this here, and this is why, and I can understand why people may want to strengthen the foot. If you're slapping the ground with your foot and your knee is breaking over the top, yes, it's taking tremendous forces. But if you're rolling diagonal across the foot, it doesn't take those. So it just depends on how you're using your foot. So and that's why sometimes I like to clarify stuff. People, if you are running flat-footed or heel to toe or a linear foot, then yes, go ahead and strengthen your feet. You're going to need it. Mm-hmm. If you are pronating and continue to pronate until toe off, you don't need to strengthen your feet.
Oh yeah, that's right on. And that's one of the things that I've learned from you that's just gold, man. Like in terms of, if you're going to sprint in the sagittal plane, you better get strong in the sagittal plane. If you're going to be able to invoke rotation and the frontal and transverse planes like you're supposed to, it's a game changer. So, hey, I love it. I'd love to talk for more on the foot. I feel like we could have a whole episode on it.
But what the whole thing about it is, people need to, one thing about the foot is the ultimate timing mechanism of movement, because it tells you where you are and when you need to get off the foot. The biggest thing about the foot is what we call, at some point in time, you have to remove a base, and that's the leg, and replace it with the other leg. So the foot's going to tell you exactly when that needs to happen, the ultimate timing.
Yeah, no doubt. That's where all it starts. Well, hey, that's why with the Rewire Clinic and the brand and the little circuit on the foot, I think it says a lot. So.
Oh yeah. It says a whole lot. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thanks for your time, Adarian. I always learn so much talking to you, so appreciate it, man.
All right.
All right, thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you guys listening. And for all of you who really want to dig deeper into the workings of the human body, which I imagine is most everyone listening to this podcast, I can't imagine that you didn't get just so many nuggets out of that episode that'll allow you to look at athletic movement differently and to engage your athletes' movement in a new way and coach them to some personal bests. So anyways, we'll see you guys next week with another great show. Again, check out the Rewire Clinic series, the Santa Clara stop, and then Columbus, Ohio, Santa Clara on July 28th and 29th. Hope to see you there. Check it out on the Just Fly Sports main page. Also, don't forget to visit our sponsor, SimpliFaster.com, suppliers of high-end training technology, free lap timing system, gym wear, force plates, contact grids. They have an amazing array of technology and an amazing blog to help you out as coaches. So check them out. We'll see you guys next week. Have a good one.